Hi, Christy Turner with DementiaSherpa.com. I'm your Dementia Sherpa guiding you through rough terrain. I'm back with part 2 of the whole doctor appointment and dementia morass. So I'm giving you 12 ideas to help make that happen so you can actually get the appointment to happen. So we are at number 7 starting in this video. If you didn't have a chance to watch the previous video, you're going to want to jump back and do that. It's about 13 minutes and then come back to this one. Okay, so number 7, we want to do what works, right? Really, everything is hard enough when it comes to dementia. So we want to take all the shortcuts we can. We want to make things as easy as possible. Forget doing it the hard way. That's how you've been doing it. So we're going for the easiest, simplest way to do things. So that includes doing what works. Number 1, and I should clarify, doing what works, we're talking about how you get someone to actually go to the doctor, okay? What guides are you going to use? Typically, if you say a week in advance or even a day in advance, hey, you have a doctor appointment, that's not going to work. But as it gets closer and you're ready to share that information and deal with the anxiety that it causes, you might need sort of a cover story, because typically people will say, I don't need to go to the doctor, right? So number 1, you can try a medication refill. Usually a medication runs out after the prescription runs out after a year, and the person needs to be seen in order to get the medication refilled, to get the prescription refilled. So if, and this is the only circumstance you want to use this, if your loved one agrees that they do need the medication. If it's already a problem getting someone to take their medication and it's kind of a skirmish every time with them saying, I don't need this medication, this isn't going to work for you. But if that's not a problem, try the medication refill route. And so you can say something like, the doctor needs to see you before we can get a refill on this. The doctor just needs to, visual, make sure you're still okay, and then we're out of there. It's going to be a quick thing, so it's just a formality, boom. Number 2, if your loved one acknowledges that they have memory problems, and again, this is only for people who acknowledge that they have a memory problem. So some people are very open about it and say, I can't remember, or I don't know, or there's something, I don't know what's wrong with my memory. If this is your situation, this will work to get them to go to the doctor, right? So you can still do this without having to say the scary D word, dementia or Alzheimer's or anything like that. So, and this also has the added benefit, what I'm about to tell you, of being true. So a lot of times people will have memory problems. They're showing signs of cognitive impairment, but it's actually not dementia. So some things that can cause cognitive impairment that are not dementia are a vitamin deficiency, like a vitamin B12 deficiency, constipation, an infection, urinary tract infection, or an upper respiratory infection, low thyroid function, depression. So again, depending on your loved one, and you are the expert on your loved one, so you know what will work. For a lot of people saying, well, you seem depressed, so let's go see the doctor because that could be the problem with your memory. That's usually not going to work, because people of like that World War II Greatest Generation, you don't talk about depression. They equate that with, crazy. And so that's not going to be a way that will work for them. But if there's some other way, again, acknowledge memory problems, you can use any of those, or you can just say, you know what, I recently heard that there are a lot of other medical conditions that mimic dementia, but they're not actually dementia. So thought it would be a good idea to take you to the doctor to find out what's really going on. And that can be reassuring based on, again, somebody's personality. A third way is if someone is denying that they have a memory problem, okay? So let's say that there was an experience where you all went to the doctor and a diagnosis of dementia or Alzheimer's or Lewy bodies or whatever it was given at that time. and your parent was saying, absolutely not, that doctor's an idiot, has no idea what she's talking about, I don't have that problem. Use that to your advantage, because typically, the person after they have that experience will say, I'm never going back to a doctor again. Here's how you use it to your advantage. You're going to get a second opinion. Okay? This works particularly well, obviously, if you're changing doctors or further testing was required or indicated or ordered. So use that to your advantage and say, hey, I know you were really upset the last time we went to the doctor, and I thought it would be a great idea if we got a second opinion, or if we saw XYZ specialist, because that way we'll know what's really going on. Boom. A fourth way is you can use the waiting list ploy. So, and again, this works particularly well with a new doctor. So you can say something like, oh, I heard it's 6 months to get in for an appointment because this doctor's so good, or this doctor's so popular, or this doctor's so popular because this doctor's so good. So let's use the waiting list, right? And how this works is you have planned out your day, right? So you do the errand, and now you're actually driving on the way to the doctor's appointment. You're coming up on it, you go, oh, wow. Hey, this is right by Dr. Wonderful's office, and she has a 6-month waiting list because she is so good at diagnosing what's really going on. Since we're right here, let's just run in real quick and get on the waiting list. And then we'll be on to our next thing, whatever that is, right? So the trick is you have to get your loved one to come into the office with you, right? You go up to the counter, sign in, hey, we wanted to get on the waiting list. Or maybe you have your loved one sitting in a chair waiting for you. And then imagine your shock and surprise when they had a sudden cancellation and boom, you happen to be there and da-da-da-da, right? So you just get caught up in the momentum of it all and dummy up. Like, I had no idea this was going to happen. Wow, how lucky are we, right? Put a positive spin on it, boom, you're in. And a fifth way is you can take advantage of, if you have a chronic medical condition or you've just had like a minor surgery or something like that, it's your follow-up appointment, right? So you have a plan for the day with your loved one, hey, mom, I'd love to take you to lunch. Right? And I'll come by and pick you up. Okay. So you go to mom's house, you put her in the car, you're driving along, and you go, oh, on the way over here, I got a call that there was a cancellation, or that they squeezed me in for a follow-up appointment. So I just need to go in there right quick and check, for the checkup, and then we'll go to lunch. And the reason you want to do this after your parent is already in the car is because, of course, you don't want to give them, forewarning about it, where it gives them the opportunity to say, oh, well, why don't you just come pick me up after your appointment, right? So lay the groundwork for that one. This will work. So you go in. Again, you want to make sure, staying in the car is not an option, right? They're going to come in with you. And, hey, mom, just come into the exam room with me, so we can spend as much time together as possible. And then the medical assistant comes in, takes your blood pressure. Oh, you'll do that for my mom too since she's here? Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Wow, what a great doctor's office, right? So that's how you kind of hand that off. So try those 5 things, or any of those, or some combination. Maybe it's got your imagination going where you're coming up with something on your own. Number 8 in our big list is and this is obvious from everything I just said, is you want to contact the doctor's office in advance, because they need to go along with whatever ruse you're using to get your loved one in there, right? The wheels are going to blow off the bus if you're standing there at the front desk and like, oh, you're here for your mom's appointment? No, I'm here for my appointment. And then, your mom's going, wait a minute, what's going on? I'm out of here. So we don't want to be in that situation. Something to remember about this, if this seems like, oh, I couldn't do that. Here's what I want you to remember, okay? Because too often we don't remember this. We pay the doctor, right? And even if you're watching in the UK or Canada and don't have a copay, here's the deal. I have never met a doctor in any country or heard of any doctor in any country who pays patients to come to her, right? That just doesn't happen. So, this is a professional who's providing a service to you. In other words, the professional works for you. Therefore, everybody in the office should be fine with being sensitive to your situation and participating and going along with what you need them to do. Because, excuse me, you are the patient, right? Or your parent is the patient, you're advocating for the patient. So just make that clear. Some offices are great to talk to on the phone, others respond really well to email. So, whatever the situation is, take advantage of it, but just know you're going to have to do a little bit of prep work, okay? So, it's not something to wait to do the same day of the appointment. You want to preferably a couple of weeks in advance. Let people know what you're thinking. You might call the day before as just a reminder. Okay. Oh, and also, this is the time, particularly with a new doctor, any of the paperwork that they want you to fill out, they can email that to you or send it to you in the mail in advance. And while you're on the phone making arrangements for this new service provider, be sure that it is your phone number and your address, you as the responsible party, that is on record there. Because the last thing you want is to have this great plan, you're psyched about it, you know it's going to work, I've got y'all pumped up, right? And you're full of good ideas and you're like, yes, I can do this. And then the doctor's office calls your parents home and says, hey, I'm calling to confirm the appointment. What? What appointment? I don't know what you're talking about. And then all of a sudden you're walking around with the target on your back. No good. So we don't want that. Make sure that you are the contact person. Have those forms sent to you. You can fill them out, get them returned to the office promptly, and also make clear to them, no, when we come in for the appointment, we're not going through the checklist again. We're not discussing it. None of that is happening. We're just going to smoothly go with XYZ plan, whatever it is you've laid out for them. Again, they work for you. Okay, now, number 9, yes, don't wear a target on your back, okay? And what I mean by that is some of the things I just described, you can end up being the one with the target on your back. You don't want that. The good rule of thumb here is always throw the doctor under the bus. No matter what goes wrong, it's the doctor's fault, right? Usually, and this is in a pretty serious situation, somebody's going to see a doctor one time a month. But usually it's 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. So, yeah, it's the doctor's fault. Your parent will either forget about that or, you may end up having to change to a different provider, but you are involved with your parent in a daily, manner, weekly. It's a lot closer proximity and contact, and there's an emotional relationship there. That doesn't need to be in jeopardy because a service provider has done something that, they are the ones, after all, that make the decision about, well, it's not safe for you to drive anymore, or you need to take XYZ medication, right? So it's not just blindly blaming the doctor, but sometimes, if it comes to a placement situation, right, and your parents saying, I want to go home, you got to get me out of here, then you say, I'm sorry, I want to, it's the doctor, right? It's always the doctor. Blame the doctor. You need to still have a great relationship with your loved one. Okay, number 10, and this is a crucial part of pulling this whole thing off, is go for a treat. You definitely want to go for a treat at the end of the experience. Why? Because to the extent that people are able to make new memories, it has to do with the emotional connection they have to the experience. So do you want them to be having a bad emotional connection, a really negative emotional connection to going to a doctor office? You don't want that memory, right? You want to do something cool afterwards, something that's going to create a lot of positive memories. So that's the memory that they're kept with. So it might not be that they remember, oh, we went out to lunch at this fancy hotel, blah, 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 whatever it is. They may not remember the details, but they remember, when they were out with you, it was a good experience. And I'll give you an example of this from a private client that I worked with a few years ago. His family said, there's no way we can get him to go to the doctor. And we know he needs to go to the doctor. We've been trying for 3 years. So I said, sure, I feel up to the challenge. So what I did was went to his house, created a little rapport with him. And I'd met him before, on a few occasions, but created a little rapport. Just, hi, how are you? Right? Like a normal person, little social niceties. Then I said, hey, would you like to go for a ride? Absolutely, he would. Okay, great. He and his wife lived in a home where it had been new construction when they had moved in 30 years prior. And it is a very complicated, like a labyrinth, private gated community. I never would have found my way out of it without his help. So that was burned into his brain. He navigated me out of it. I offered a lot of praise for his ability to do that. Then he was pointing out things to me along the way as we were driving to the doctor appointment. So I told him, I appreciated the history lesson, or I didn't know that. And it was a completely new area of town for me. So this was great. We pulled into the parking lot, got out of the car. He was like, oh, what are we doing? And I said, oh, we just got to stop in here real quick. He said, oh, okay. Again, it depends on where somebody is in the disease process, right? So you'll know what's going to work in your situation. We walked into the office, beautiful tropical fish tank. We were admiring the fish. They called his name. I said, hey, let's go see what's going on. Somebody just called your name. Went into the office, sat down. Obviously, it was a doctor office, right? It was an exam room. He said, oh, I think a doctor's going to come. I said, yeah, looks like it. Medical assistant walked in, took his blood pressure. Everything was low key. I'm still chatting with him. The doctor comes in, talks to him. Boom, we were out of there. No problem. We got back in the car, and here's my little piece of insider information that the family thought might help me. This guy loved cinnamon rolls and he loved coffee, and his wife wasn't very excited about him having either of those things. So we stopped at a Cinnabon on the way home, which was not an accident. There was a Cinnabon on the way home. So we went in there. He had a cinnamon roll. He had coffee. You would have thought he was like a little kid at Disneyland. He was so excited. And we just took our time, got back in the car, took him to his home. We walked in. His wife said, so how was your drive? He said, well, I don't really want to tell you, but I had a Cinnabon and I had coffee too. And that's what, and she was so relieved. She was like, did you see the doctor? Yeah, I did. Everything went fine. She didn't care. She didn't care there was Cinnabon and coffee involved. She just thought it was a miracle he had actually seen the doctor, right? So 2 things out of that. Number 1, he didn't remember the doctor appointment at all. What he remembered was the Cinnabon and the coffee. He was so happy about that. Number 2 was the family had been trying for 3 years. So when they really started thinking about it, after we had the positive experience of me getting him into the doctor, they realized, they hadn't talked to him about the doctor in probably 2 years. So things change as the disease is progressing, right? They felt battle scarred from when they had tried that first year. And their approach was, you have to do it, it's for your own good. Nobody loves to hear that, right? Even if we know it's true, if somebody's telling us that, we're still like, you're not the boss of me. Well, that was his reaction. So you can have success even if you initially don't have success, which leads me right to my next point. Number 12, here's the very worst case scenario, is you need to reschedule it, right? That's the very worst case scenario. So at the same time, we definitely want to leave room for a miracle. And I realized I just skipped number 11. So here's number 11, and this is an important part. It's called behavioral rehearsal. What it means is you and a friend or someone else in your family, you're going to role play, okay? So everything that you're freaked out or afraid is going to happen in the course of all of this, you're going to have the partner and let's go through it. Let's run through every single scenario, okay? So you'll be your parent and the other person will be you, and then you'll swap places. So you can look at it from every angle. And what it does is, as you do this and you run through it successfully and you find out, oh, there might be a little bump in the road here, or I should handle this differently, your brain doesn't know that that's not real, right? So if any of those scenarios happen, you've already run through them successfully, your brain is like, I've been through this before. And boom, your response is going to come off a lot more naturally. You're not going to have that deer in the headlights moment of, oh, what should I do now? I know I watched a video about this or I had a plan. It's just going to come much more naturally. So definitely incorporate behavioral rehearsal. Now, just to run through this again, including what was in the last video, the first video in this series, and this one, I'll just give you a quick recap. So you want to have a plan for the day. That's number one. Okay, so we're just going to kind of slide the appointment into the overall plan for the day. Number two, oversharing leads to anxiety, so we're not going to do that. Number three, you want to mentally prepare yourself and just breathe deeply, count to 10,000 if that's what it takes, but you're going to bring respect, kindness, and love. Number four, you're going to just do the next indicated thing. Not worry about anything that's coming after, just whatever's in front of you, that's what you're going to do as you're going through this day with the appointment. Number five, no arguing. Just like you don't need to be told you don't kick your dog because you know that and duh, you'd never do that. Same with arguing. It's not going to get you anywhere. You're never going to win. Number six, create a plan for the day. And that's where I realized, hey, I think I have kind of a duplication in my list. But this is where you want to come up with an idea for what the fun treat thing is, so that you're not coming out of the appointment and feeling kind of a little bit stressed and your adrenaline was spiking and now it's dropping and you're kind of worn out. And then you try and figure out what you're going to do next. Just during this step, figure out what the fun thing is going to be and incorporate that into your plan for the day. Number seven is do what works. Dementia is hard enough. We're not going to do anything to make this situation any more difficult. So depending on your loved one and your certain circumstances, you might use the guise of needing a medication refill. You might, if somebody's acknowledging that they do have memory problems, use that to your advantage. If they're denying they have memory problems, use that to your advantage. Number four, use a waiting list as a reason to go into the office. Number five, use the guise of it's your own appointment. Okay. Number eight, overall, you want to contact the office in advance so they know what to expect and they can work with you, because they do work for you. Number nine, don't wear a target on your back. Always, always, always throw the professional under the bus. You know what? We're used to it. And obviously I'm encouraging it, and we all do, because we understand and we do want you to go home and be happy and have a good relationship and not be tortured. Okay, number 10, after the experience, you want to go for a treat. You're going to create a positive memory. You want that to be the overriding feel of the day. That's your mom sees you again and says, oh yeah, she may not remember anything that happened specifically, but just it's going to be a positive association. Number 11, you want to use behavioral rehearsal so that if anything goes sideways, your brain already has an idea of what to do next, right? So you're going to, excuse me, pick a partner and you're going to run through all of your fears for pulling this off, and you're going to trade roles. You know, your partner will be you and you'll be your parent, and then you'll swap so you can examine this from every angle and go into the situation with a lot of confidence that you got this thing and your brain already knows what to do. You're not going to be a deer in the headlights. And finally, number 12, the very worst case scenario is that you will have to reschedule, right? That's okay. That can happen. Not a big deal. This too shall pass. It's just, you know, even rescheduling a month out or sometimes 3 months out, you're still going to get it done. So don't put a ton of pressure on yourself. Just realize that's the very worst case scenario and you can deal with that, right? I would love to know if this was helpful for you, what your experiences have been, or you watched this and then you pulled off a doctor appointment. How did that work for you? Please leave your comments, and you can reach out to me anytime through any social media means. I'm on YouTube, Google+, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, pretty much everything except Snapchat, because I think that's for the kids. So you can find me at dementiasherpa.com or at Dementia Sherpa, and everything's branded Dementia Sherpa, so I try and be as easy as possible to find. Again, my name is Christy Turner. I'm with DementiaSherpa.com, and I am your Dementia Sherpa, guiding you through rough terrain. I hope this helps, and I can't wait to hear about your success.